Okay, welcome everybody. Welcome and thank you for joining us on our regular meeting, April 21st, 2015. I would like to invite Supervisor Rivas to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Ready, salute, pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Is there a motion to acknowledge certificate of posting?
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. At this time, I'd like to invite anyone from the public to address the board on items that are not on the agenda. Clerk of the board, do we have any speaker cards? Okay, anyone? Okay, we'll move on to department head announcements. CAO Espinosa.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, we do have a few announcements this morning. We have our first announcement coming out of our Health and Human Services Department. We have James Riding Sword here to share with you a little bit about what we've done with CSDC and their conflict. So, Jim?
Good morning.
Good morning.
So I have two items to update you on this morning. I actually made some notes. First, a few weeks ago, you asked a couple of the board members and a group of us to start to get together and talk about the issue of the Southside mobile home parks and the tenants there. So since then, we have met once with board members and CSDC Community Services Development Corporation that manages the mobile home park. And then we met another time with the board members, CSDC, Chispa, who came into the conversation in order to have some further discussion about the possibility of creating more low-income housing in the community, and CRLA. So to date, according to CSDC, all of the tenants have either moved or plan to move from the temporary housing at Southside Mobile Homes Park. CSDC is going to go back and review their policy because their policy talks about transitional and temporary housing, and they're going to have a discussion about changing that to just temporary housing. We also had a discussion about the potential expansion of temporary housing from 16 to 29 units outside at Southside Mobile Home Park, because there are more mobile home pads that are available out there. And so we plan to come back to the board. We're targeting May the 19th for a more detailed report. So I'll pause there in case there's any questions or comments.
Any questions? Supervisor Botello?
Yeah, I'm happy you dealt with this pretty promptly, and it sounds like it's come to a conclusion. And this is something I've talked to, I think, our CAO about, and I just want to plant a seed on this board that we have to have something, some sort of funding pool to support transitional housing or temporary housing or affordable housing as some of these developments are moving forward. And I don't know if we have that in place and formalized. And this is, some of the needs that we're going to have going forward. And it really needs to be done through, I guess, our planning in coordination with Health and Human Services.
Maybe during the budget hearings, I don't know if there's any plan. Jim, do we have any funding that is specific?
Well, at the moment, we don't, but I think the second item may shed a little more light on that.
Okay.
Okay. Second item is about homeless services and economic development. As you know, we've been working on a plan for homeless services through the Homeless Services Planning Committee. We are planning to come back to the board soon with proposed bylaws for that group to turn it into a homeless services commission, and have more formal recognition from the board and the cities on that. We recently were awarded a National Latino Community Assets Builders Grant for technical assistance through a group called the California Community Economic Development Association. We're working with them on a scope of work, and that scope of work will include topics such as homeless services, low-income housing, workforce development, things that we might be able to work on in the community to, kind of give some underlying support for things. And part of what they do is help us identify sources of funding, foundation grants and things like that, that might help in that process. And they will be back in the community within the next 6 weeks to have discussions with all of us. Our consultant, Jose Vasquez, and I met with them fairly extensively late last week to go over what it is that they can do. So I think that brings another layer into the conversation that could help us move forward. I've been kind of thinking about a kind of, quote, master plan kind of approach that we might, have discussions with the board about in terms of looking at these issues that include homelessness, low-income housing, workforce development, things like that. So that's our report, my report today, and I'll stop there for any further comments or questions.
Okay, no, that's good information. Thank you, Jim.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We have another announcement out of our Ag Department. We have our new Ag Commissioner here, Karen Overstreet. She has a announcement for you and as well as the public.
Good morning, members of the board. I wanted to come today to just give you a brief update on the detection of the Asian citrid psyllid that we had found. It was originally found in a trap that was placed in a lemon tree in a residential neighborhood here in Hollister. This is part of our routine trapping program. When one pest is found like this, it triggers a immediate response from the California Department of Food and Ag. And they immediately deployed 2 crews that have been working in the area of the find for the past week and a half. One crew has been placing additional traps in the area, and they have placed a total of 350 traps. And then the other crew has been going door to door, inspecting citrus trees and surveying the area for more pests. They have surveyed 324 properties, and to date we have not found another Asian citrid psyllid, which is very good news. There is a treatment component to this program. The citrus trees on the find site and one adjacent property have already been treated. It's a very targeted approach. They're only treating the host plants, and it's done with a hand sprayer. The protocol calls for host plants, which are primarily citrus, to be treated within the 100-meter radius of the find. Before any treatment is conducted, California Department of Food and Ag will host a public meeting to provide more information on the program and to address any concerns that the public may have. The expanded trapping will eventually be taken over by the county, and they will enhance our contract with the California Department of Food and Ag to cover these costs.
Thank you. Any questions from the board? Okay, I just want to thank you for informing us as soon as this was known. So it was good to know that you were working on it, and there really has been no other infestation other than that one particular trap.
Right.
So thank you.
Thank you.
for keeping us informed.
Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Yes, we also have another announcement out of our library. We have our librarian, Nora Conte, here.
Good morning, board members, general public, and those citizens that are watching from home. I have some wonderful news to share with you today. On Friday, the last during the last celebration of National Library Week, I was opening a letter, and this letter came from our state librarian, Greg Lucas, informing us that we had been awarded $30,000 so that we could facilitate the broadband expansion for our library. This is wonderful news for us because we will be able to move forward. The other thing that I wanted to let you know is that this board, our San Benito County Board, was the first supervisorial board that signed a contract in the state of California to move this scenic project. And your public library was the first jurisdiction that got those papers in before anyone else. I want to thank you for supporting the broadband and the scenic project, and all of those that will help to make a difference. This is a wonderful day because it will really change the service for individuals seeking information through technology. Our CIO, very definitely with his vision of technology for San Benito. Our legal counsel, who worked with me on those contracts. Our Public Works Department, who helped to facilitate some of the questions and costs that we needed for the grant. Our IT department, John Shelley, who was very diligent about getting that information out to us. So I'm really, really pleased that this is really going to be happening for our county, and I thank each and every one of you for your leadership and wisdom on this project. Thank you.
Nora, thank you. That is great news, and Little San Benito County is a trendsetter, yay. So I'm very pleased to hear that. Any questions or comments? And congratulations on your National Week of Celebration last week. I had the pleasure of attending on the first day, and the food was wonderful, the people were great, and you honored folks that have volunteered at the library, so congratulations to all of them.
There was a wonderful letter that was a real shot in the arm on Benito Link that one of our volunteers put in there, and that was really encouraging. I also would like to tell you that we are going to start planning for summer reading program, and I'll be coming back to you and just letting you know what the theme for this year will be for summer reading program. You know, summer reading program is really important because it helps to avoid the summer slump for our youth so that they will be prepared to be ready to just, well, as somebody said, rock and roll in school. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have one more announcement. It's coming out of administration. At our prior board meeting, your board approved the CAO and 2 Board of Supervisors to attend a local governance committee on April 15th in Sacramento to hear AB 440, which this particular legislation would bring relief to our outstanding ERAFT issues that we have with our county. Chairperson Barrios, Supervisor Botello, SEIU, Matt Soverling, myself, and a few others were heard. The committee voted 9-0. So the next steps would be going to appropriations and Senate possibly. So I want to give a special thanks to Assemblyman Alejo as well as our Senator Canella for authoring and co-authoring the bill. So I want to thank also those that were able to attend.
Yeah.
That's it.
You're welcome. It was a good experience. I know that we have a challenge in the next committee that we have to go before, but this round was very successful. So thank you. Thank you, Supervisor Botello, for attending, and our CAO Espinosa and SEIU members that were there as well.
Yeah, I just want to echo those sentiments as well, and you know, with the powerful testimony from our chairman Barrios, I think that's what really was how we got the 9-0 vote.
Oh.
So,
Well, thank you. I think it was a team effort, but thank you. That's it?
That's
Okay.
it, yeah.
Very good. Okay, we'll go on to board announcements, and I'll start with Supervisor Munzer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. One announcement I'd like to make is at the Monterey Bay I always can't remember the Unified Air Pollution Control District, which we're trying to change that name a little shorter. Staff is doing an Air Quality 101 class. So every meeting, every month, they're going to have a little tidbit on how we've gotten to where we are with our air regulations. And the one thing they brought out this last week that I thought was very interesting was that in 1947, the Air Pollution Control Act was authorized the creation of the Air Pollution Control District in every county of the state. So this is not something recent. This is, since shortly after World War II, the state has been concerned about the quality of the air that we breathe. And then in 1959, the first statewide air quality standards were set by the Department of Public Health for, we'll go into the rest of it. So this has been going on for a while. And personally, I thought it was kind of more of the 70s issue, but it has actually been going on for quite a while in the state. And the other issue is at ANBAG and at COG meeting, the state plan, 2040 plan for transportation was discussed. And Mary, help me if I screw it up again. But the state is looking to put in a well, basically, they don't want to increase the amount of capacity that the state highway systems have.
Non-build.
Yeah, so basically non-building policy and not only for the state highways, but that could have ramifications for local roads and everything. So both the AMBAG board and the COG board authorized a response letter to the plan. The response time ended on Friday, so fortunately it's too late for this board to do anything. But it has the potential of affecting our ability to expand Highway 25 down the road. So definitely both boards were concerned about this. With that, that is all I have.
Okay, thank you. Supervisor Patello.
Yes, Madam Chair, I have quite a few things I hope you don't mind.
No, please.
Speaking of the COG meeting, we have a report coming in a little bit later on the agenda for that poll that was taken for, so I won't get into that. One of the issues that we did talk about at the COG was enlisting, contracting with an engineering firm to, for alternative designs for Highway 25 widening. And this meeting, we were very fortunate for the first time since he's taken the post, Mr. Gubbins attended the meeting, and so he's the director of District 5. And so this time, I didn't have to shoot the messengers. We got to take shots at the head guy while he was here, and I believe the board did vote to direct staff to enter into negotiations to obtain the engineering firm to design the 25 widening. But I'm very concerned that we're going to spend a bunch of money, again, local money that could be used for other purposes, on designs that Caltrans won't accept at a later date. And best that I could get out of Mr. Gubbins is, well, maybe. And, I continue to be frustrated in that regard. And this is a project that, we're trying to take on jointly with, with the cities and the county, with asking our taxpayers to, step up for a long-term program. And best we could get out of them is a maybe. The fight needs to continue, and it needs to continue every chance we get. And as we go forward and come up with something that's workable for this county, we got to make sure that we, take the battle to Caltrans, and it will be a battle. They've proven their track record with all our other projects. So with that, I also last week attended an RCRC meeting up in Sacramento, and I have a summary. Some of the issues that we talked about was with government affairs, local marijuana ordinances. We probably have to put that on our radar very soon. And RCRC staff is hosting member county medical marijuana ordinances with their internal server in the effort to make these local ordinances available to members interested in learning more about how other counties are addressing the issue. And some other counties are ahead of us on that, so I don't believe we'll have to reinvent the wheel, and hopefully at some point we'll start addressing that as probably after we get done with some of the other major projects that we're working on. And seeing that our water district people are here, Sunny Slope and Samuel Water, and I want to mention this, we also talked about safe drinking water for disadvantaged communities, and we were provided information of various initiatives from the state administration relating to safe drinking water for disadvantaged communities. The administration is seeking to partner with local entities, including counties, in an effort to remedy the lack of affordable and safe drinking water for many disadvantaged communities, and recently held a series of individual meetings with various stakeholders to discuss the two-page outline titled Affordable, Safe Drinking Water for Disadvantaged Communities. And I hope we're on top of those opportunities for in Samuel County. We also have RCRC presented the Assembly Bill 1362, which talked about stormwater changes with the definition, and it was introduced as an Assembly constitutional amendment, which would respectively define stormwater to mean any system of public improvements or services intended to provide for quality, conservation, control, and conveyance of waters that land on or drain across the natural or man-made landscape. And two, allow voters to decide stormwater infrastructure and services should be funded a similar way that water districts and wastewater districts fund infrastructure and services. And RCRC is supporting that AB 1362. And it's my favorite topic, transportation funding. And it's encouraging that there has been a lot of activity up in Sacramento trying to find a solution how to approach this, maintaining the highways and local roads and streets in a reasonable, maintained fashion for the investment. And what's kind of surfacing to the top is Senate Bill 16, and that's from Senator Beals from San Jose, and we were given a presentation that it really takes in funding mechanisms with truck weights, weight fees, gas tax, diesel gas tax, and vehicle license, vehicle registration fees, and so it's a wide range of funding mechanisms that is perceived to be fair. And also included in the bill is that just short of half of that money that is raised will be allocated to local cities and counties for maintaining their roads. And a special emphasis, a little bit, is a additional monies would be for self-help counties. So if we're able to pass a sales tax, maybe we'll get a little bump as well, if that's available. And so I express my support for this bill, although RCRC is just kind of is on a wait and see. It is an increase in taxes, and that's a hard thing to swallow if you're in a rural county and you tend to be a little on the more conservative side. But I don't see any other alternative. We either take care of our investment in our asset, which is our roads and highways, or they will continue to deteriorate and cost us more down the road. And RCRC is keeping a close watch on those bills. And finally, at the federal level, Congress really hasn't come around as far as finding a permanent solution for the Highway Trust Fund, and that could mean some trouble for the states as far as maintaining some of the major highways through California. And that's what I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Botello. Important information, and thank you for keeping us, informed, because I think there's going to be a lot more to come as a result of lack of funding for our roads. Supervisor De La Cruz?
Thank you, Madam Chair. On a lighter note, on April 15th, April 11th, I took the challenge. I walked a mile in high heels, and it was encouraging to know that my fellow men also joined on the crusade and the pain suffering that women traditionally do the entire life. I asked my wife, how do you do it? I just can't explain. But I did it. I'm proud. This is my second year, and next year, hopefully I'll get another fellow supervisor to join me. I'm actually thinking of having Supervisor Botello come join me, but I got a year to work on you, Anthony. And I did have another department head who bailed out on me, and I'll call that person chicken, but I won't give names. And also, this Thursday, Community Action Board will have a town hall meeting on affordable housing, low-income housing, and issues related with affordable housing income. It will be at the Vets Building at 6 o'clock. The public is invited.
Okay, thank you, Supervisor,
Madam
and
Chair.
I'm proud of you, too. Thank you for taking that challenge, and I think what you have to do with Supervisor Botello is you have to gift him a pair of shoes, high heels, and then you may go. So,
Well, I'm not going to come out if you keep saying how hard it is.
Oh, so easy. Hey, look at the good side. You get ice cream.
Oh, there we go.
yeah, Supervisor Rivas?
I have no announcements, Madam Chair.
Okay, and I have two announcements. I attended Spring Grove, which is in my district, invited me to a meeting that they had. They're concerned about the traffic safety in the area, particularly around Spring Grove School, and they have asked if there's any way we can move forward with reducing the speed limit on the east side of on Fallon, East Fallon. They use it as a bypass, parents and others dropping off their children in the morning, and it's become a very dangerous situation. So I will be talking to Joe in Public Works to see if that can be addressed. We've done it before in other county roads, and it has worked quite well. So we'll see if this is a feasible approach. So going to bring that back. And then on the 9th of April and on the 16th of April, I and our CAO Espinosa attended the meetings with state officials in regards to the Panoche Valley Solar Farm. Those meetings were very challenging, but they did go well. At the end of the day, it appears that they are listening to us, that they're willing to work with us. When we attended Sacramento, or went to Sacramento, we met with John Laird, Secretary of Natural Resources, and he is on top of it. He is writing and communicating letters with the local directors, so our regional directors, so that we can have a little more this project moving forward with people knowing what the needs are for San Benito County, what is it that still needs to be done, and really paying attention to those things so we can get our permits timely and we can take advantage of I shouldn't say we, but the developer can take advantage of the federal credits, that if that doesn't happen if we don't build out by December 31st of 2016, that project is dead. And so much for income for San Benito County and jobs for San Benito County, those things will go away. And then the meeting in Fresno was with the director of California Department of Fish and Wildlife. The initial reaction for me was that, okay, I'm not sure that we're going to go anywhere, but by the time the meeting was over, there was an agreement that the engineers for that department, the engineers for the developer would get together and they would figure out a way to mitigate particularly the bridge situation that is going on, that is supposed to be built at that project. So the director did say that they're not in the business to stop projects. They're in the business to help us make it happen with the proper mitigation. So that is what we left with, and we're hoping that by next month we will have some success in obtaining some form of permit, particularly in the addressing the species, if I'm not mistaken. So that area, the waterway may still be, even though there's no water there now, they want us to prepare for the worst-case scenario, and that is the 100-year flood. So we have to pretend, and which is not a bad thing because those things do have to be addressed, that 100-year flood is going to happen, and we have to make sure that we protect the area and protect the species. So it's a challenge, but it's more hopeful than it was a month ago. So thank you. Oh, and I want to just thank publicly first of all, our representatives, our CAO for being there, our board for being so supportive, but our representatives in Sacramento, Senator Canella and Assemblyman Alejo, are true representatives of this county. They have stepped up to the plate, and at every level, not only the Panoche Valley solar farm, but the ERAF situation, they're there to help us, and they have made it very clear that they are working for us, and so a special thank you to the two of them. Okay, we'll move on to consent agenda items. Anybody from the public that would like to pull any of the items? Anyone from the board? Number 12.
Madam Chair, I would pull item number 7 just to vote no on that one.
Okay, item number 7. Any others from the board that would like to be pulled? Okay, so item number 7 and item number 12 on the consent agenda are being pulled. So I'll entertain a motion for the remaining.
Motion to approve.
It's second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, we'll start with item number 7. Supervisor De La Cruz?
Again, I'm going to be consistent with it, and I haven't supported it from the beginning, and I won't continue to support it to today.
Okay. Anybody from the public that wants to comment on this item? Okay, bring it back to the board for a decision.
Move to approve item 7.
Second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Okay, 4-1. I second. Supervisor Botello first. So the item passes 4-1. Item number 12, Supervisor Botello.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The reason I pulled this is that it's I think, 5 different bills at the state level that I guess Health and Human Services is asking this board to support. And I'm just a little concerned about that because I don't think we've really done that in the past at any time that I recollect. And if this is a common practice for counties to because I could see it supporting individual bills on that really, have a impact on San Benito County and understanding that, and but it's on consent. we have a summary of each of the bills and letters drafted by our staff, but I just, I don't know if I have enough information on all of the bills and knowing who's for it and who's against, or what the, you know, the detailed information. And so I have some reservations about support positions without knowing a lot about the bills or how they were, you know, came about.
Okay. Jim?
So these were the 5 bills that were recommended for support by our state associations, the County Welfare Directors Association and the County Health Ops, County Executive CHIAC, whatever that means. It's health. And we pared this down from a long list of bills that they're following and tried to bring back bills that are bills that, things that we would be working on in San Benito County. I know that this is not something that has been done before, but it is a relatively common practice in other counties. If there are any particular bills that any of the board members have questions about or would like to pull from this list, they can do that. If you want to move this to 2 weeks from now, I think that would be okay. And then if we want to have individual discussions on any of these, I'd be happy to sit with you and go over the details of them. We're trying to get these bills and these positions to the state legislature prior to the May revision of the governor's budget, so that they will, the positions of San Benito County will be in the mix, along with other counties at that point in time.
So I imagine who belongs to that? I see CSAC is also supporting all 5 of these bills.
Yes, these are all coordinated with CSAC.
Okay. Well, yeah, it's kind of a blind. There's one bill in particular, I don't know personally if I have mixed feelings about it, but that's why it's so hard to support all 5. When they come up individually, you could, not support one. And I don't know if other supervisors have concerns about immunizations and the understanding of the complete issue. I've had conflicting conversations about that myself. And then there was one about providing more funding for additional babies, or what was I reading last night?
The maximum aid grant bill.
Right,
Yeah.
that's it. And I have mixed feelings about that as well.
Okay.
And,
Well, I would say that, if there are any in this list that any of the board members would like to ask the board not to forward, that would be an issue for, the board to discuss and do. We didn't want to present these in 5 different kind of items in front of the board. Thought that having them in one package so that you could see kind of the package together. And then also, if you want to say, well, I don't think we should support this, I think you should say that. And we will then take action only on those bills that the board wants to move forward with.
So I have a different logic, and I certainly would depend on the wisdom of my colleagues on this board as far as what we're doing today. But I would have preferred it to be, segregated out. Maybe keep the immunization bills together as one agenda item, but, you know, maybe another one would have been something separate, but that's what would have been my suggestion.
And we can do that in future actions, or if you decide that you want this to be done in 2 weeks, we can go back and change it so that it's separated out into 5 different actions in 2 weeks.
My preference, personally, would be separated out and bring it back in 2 weeks, but I'll leave it up to my colleagues. Maybe they have some different thoughts.
Okay, I too had a concern on the immunization one, and I think the only reason that I had a concern was because they're combining private and public, and I've always been of the belief that parents have a right to choose, and if they want to put their child in a private school, for us to demand that they immunize for private, I thought was a little more than what I can support. But, so I'd like to separate that one, if nothing else. I was okay with the others because I felt that each one of those was, well, they're all beneficial to San Benito County, but in particular to the needs of our local needs. So if we can, my recommendation would be to take out the immunization one and bring that one back with maybe more information, and we can vote on that one separately. That's what I would recommend. Any other recommendations from the board?
Well, I mean, my wife is going through this right now. She's in a class of about 40 other students, and they're about to start real soon. And her and I have been, for the last 2-3 weeks, in fact, Jim, I've talked to Jim a couple times about it, you know, getting shots and, you know, in compliance with hospital requirements. And hospitals don't care a damn if your beliefs say that we're not going to immunize our kids, and the hospital says, fine, then you won't work for us. There's a big fight going on right now.
Yeah.
And so I would tend to support the conventional wisdom as though we have to immunize kids.
Yeah.
I will support that because I've seen it firsthand. So, and I know that there's some differences on the board, and, you know, at the end of the day, we all vote and see which way it goes, but
Would you-
I will support that we put that in that language.
Okay, would you be okay to bring that back separate from the other
Absolutely.
legislation?
You know, if we-
Okay,
To allow healthy discussion on the issue, that's a good.
okay, all right. Supervisor Rivas?
Yeah, I would actually prefer that we bring it back because, you know, I do have my concerns as well.
On
And
this
so-
particular
yeah,
one?
on that one. It's such a controversial issue, you know, and I certainly want to have that discussion with my family and my wife because I don't want my mom, and, you know, she's a school teacher, and my wife, they have their concerns. And so I certainly don't want to make a rash a decision to make my home life a mess. So I certainly need some time to yeah.
Okay, well, it sounds like we want to separate that one. So far, you have support for that. Supervisor Munzer? Okay, so why don't we go ahead and vote on the others and then
Well,
separate that one?
Yeah, and I also kind of want to contemplate a little bit more about Senate Bill 23,
Which is?
which is the maximum family grant rule for work opportunities and responsibility to kids. It's a CalWorks program, and I guess what it's calling for is more funding to people that have more kids. And the problem is, someone sent me a joke on maybe it's not a joke on the computer, and at least I guess that's what kind of weighs on my mind, that we're rewarding people to have more kids and collect more welfare, knowing that these programs are out there, rather than, well, maybe we should be responsible and not take adequate precautions, or look into other alternatives. And I just want to study that a little bit more.
Okay.
If
Yeah.
we could wait 2 more weeks, that would be real helpful for me.
Yeah, and I don't, we can do that. I think
Yes.
what I was trying to avoid is to bring them all 5 back so that we can.
Oh, yeah.
We can go ahead and isolate those 2, and I don't think the rest of the board will be objective to that, so, and then vote on the 3 that are left that deal with the foster children.
Yes.
Is one, the e-cigarettes, and remind me of the third one. Jim?
I don't have it in front of me.
Okay, let me look through here very
Yeah.
quickly. But I do remember those two. Adult Protective Services
Yes,
training.
yes.
Yeah. So are there any comments from the public regarding this item? Okay, I'll bring it back so that we can go ahead and vote on the 3 remaining. And Jim, you'll bring us back the 2 on.
Yes, we will.
The one on CalWorks and the one on immunization.
We will.
Okay. So I'll entertain a motion for the other 3.
So move.
Okay. There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. So you've got
So-
our support on the 3 letters for the 3 items only.
And we accomplished at least one thing that we hoped to accomplish, that was thoughtful consideration, discussion by the board members.
Yes, exactly. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move on now to our regular agenda items. And the first one is we have a presentation number 20 from Ms. Gilbert. But you know what, I'll have our CAO introduce it.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, this item is our first item on our regular agenda, and this item actually came by the wishes of your board at our prior board meeting to have a presentation by our interim COG director, Mary Gilbert, as well as EMC Research, to kind of understand what the actual voter survey results would be out of COG. So we have Mary here for that.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ray. Good morning.
Good morning, Mary, welcome.
Yes, I'm happy to be here that we can report out on our survey results. As you know, COG entered into a contract with EMC Research, and using some transportation planning funds in our budget, we were able to conduct this voter survey back at the end of March. So I'm going to let Ruth Bernstein from EMC Research go through a pretty detailed presentation of all the survey results, the questions that we asked, and what we heard back. Just a little bit of background in terms of the methodology for the survey. We did bring the full survey to our COG board, and were able to receive some input that way as we developed the questions and finalized those before we went out to the voters. We did talk to 300 registered voters in San Benito County for this survey. Something to keep in mind, because the survey did take into consideration and thoughts on sales tax expenditures and what folks' opinions were on that, is something that Supervisor Botello did bring up regarding Senate Bill 16. There is a provision in that bill that would authorize 5% of the annual revenues to go to counties that pass a sales tax measure after July 1st of 2015. So it's new self-help counties. Counties who already have a sales tax measure wouldn't have access to those funds, but a county like San Benito that doesn't currently have a transportation tax measure would be able to access that. So that's just something that is kind of exciting news in the transportation funding world that we're thinking about. So I'd be happy to take
I have a question in
questions.
regards to that. So then, that sales tax has to be specific for funding in some form? Because I thought we couldn't be too specific with the sales tax and say what it's for, but I guess that would come with a committee to maybe move in that direction. Can you tell me how that would work?
The indication that we had when we were up there a few weeks ago and met with the Director of Transportation, and I asked that question whether if we had a general tax, but we're maybe an advisory
Committee?
recommendation from the voters would emphasize transportation, or does it have to be a specific tax? And it would, from the feeling I got from them, is that it really needs to be a specific tax that's dedicated to transportation to be defined as a self-help county. Not saying that's completely impossible, but it would be far more difficult if it's a general tax. Would
get the
you agree
funding.
with that?
And as what I've read in Senate Bill 16 and what's in the proposal, yes, it did say a transportation sales tax.
So there's a real balance there, because if it's general, you can pass it a little easier. If it's specific, we're going to have a harder time passing it, so.
Yeah, and I think, in tandem, that's where Assemblyman Frazier's bill is interesting, in the fact that he's trying to lower that threshold of voter approval for the specific tax. And if that's successful, then maybe it's easier hurdle to go over.
Right, okay. Sorry, Mary, I just needed to clarify. Supervisor
Well, I'm just going to say
Mazza?
the presentation may shed some light on your concern also.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
So with that, if there's not any more questions for me, I'll go ahead. and
Okay,
close the
please,
presentation.
thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Thank you, Madam Chair, board members of the board. I'm very impressed with the walking a mile in high heels. I have to say, I don't think I could do it. So I'm going to take you through, thank you for having us here. We're going to take you through the results, and I think what you'll see is actually very good news and very optimistic about really the possibility of doing a special tax here for transportation funding. One thing to keep in mind, so first we did do 300 interviews. We did do the survey in English and in Spanish, as we do with all of our interviewing here in this county. And we have some comparisons to, we worked with AMBAG in 2013, and we asked some similar questions, so you'll see some comparisons to results from 2013. One thing to keep in mind as we go through here, before I go through the findings, is that this was really meant to be, it's a very short survey and sort of a first step on the road to, should we think about moving forward with a measure for 2016, or do we not have the voter support and we need to kind of go down a road of other options? And what we see here really is there is a real opportunity. Voters are seeing that funding is needed for transportation and very strong support for individual projects. We do recommend then, you know, as we'll go through this, that this is not sort of your definitive poll of, okay, here's your ballot question, here's your ballot language, here's how we communicate, but this is really a first step that says, okay, now that we're still early in the phases of 2015, we think this gives us an indication that we could at least start moving down that road of actually preparing a measure. So as I said, very high recognition among voters about the need for transportation funding. 80% say there's a need for additional transportation funding in the county. Support for transportation sales tax is actually above 2/3, 3/4 support a half-cent sales tax to fund a variety of, if we include Highway 25 widening, improved transit, bike and pedestrian safety, things like that. But, you know, a word of caution, there is definitely some hesitation. We know this county, conservative, some voters very conservative, concerned about raising taxes, trust in local government about tax money. So we do feel like having an expenditure plan, a special tax that outlines the specific projects, includes accountability and focus, makes a lot of sense. So I'm going to go through the numbers, and of course, you know, I can answer questions as well. So first, a question pollsters love to ask: are things in the county going in the right direction, or are they off on the wrong track? Very general question, and I'm on page 5 if you're following on the paper copy. Here now, 49% say things are going in the right direction, 31% off on the wrong track, actually more optimistic than we saw 2 years ago. We're seeing this in other communities as well. As the economy gets better, people feel a little bit more optimistic. And we ask an open-ended question: what do you think is the most important problem facing San Benito County today? And what we see here is that it really, the mood sort of, or what the current issues are, really depends on kind of what's been in the news. Water, of course, coming up to the top. We're seeing that actually statewide. Finally, a huge increase in the number of people everywhere in the state, and especially here, mentioning water really as the most important problem. Development continues to be an issue. Crime is down a little bit because water's up. You can see, you know, fracking, Measure J, something like that, because there was just a measure on the ballot. That's coming up as an issue. Transportation, road maintenance kind of continues to be mentioned by some, but the other issues are really kind of what's in the news comes up more frequently, which then is also an opportunity to potentially heighten awareness of transportation issues if we're doing a measure and talking about it. The next question, this is just straight up, thinking about roads, highways, buses, bike paths, and sidewalks in the county, that is the entire transportation network. Do you think there's a great need, some need, a little need, or no need for additional funding? Very, very high awareness of need here. 50% saying a great need, 29% some need. It is rare that we see this for transportation. We see this a lot in school districts, elementary school districts. And we think this is actually a good indication about whether or not a measure is going to get to 2/3. And we're at 79% thinking there's a need for money. This, again, doesn't mean that we're going to win if we put it on the map. There's a lot that has to be done, but this is sort of a first indication. And then we did a couple of things here in the, we started out with, we split, and half the people heard a group of projects mentioned, and then half the people heard about only one project. We said sales tax that could primarily fund the widening of Highway 25 from 2 lanes to 4 lanes, and we see 65% total like that. They said they would vote yes on widening Highway 25, 34% no. And then the next group actually heard, and what about a measure that would fund a range of transportation improvements, including widening Highway 25, but also road repair, improved bike and pedestrian safety, better transit services for youth, seniors, and people with disabilities. 75% said they would vote yes on that, 24% no. And that's consistent whether they heard only the widening 25 or they heard the multi-project first. The multi-project gets higher support. Again, I want to caution that this 75%, this is no, we're a long way from the ballot, but this is a good indication that it's above 2/3 as kind of a starting point. The combined, so the multi-project was 75%. The single project, Highway 125, was only 65%. Our suggestion then is that we start down considering an expenditure plan that would include other projects as well. Couple of demographics on the overall vote when we combine these. Very, high support actually among young people, the 18 to 49 category, 83% support. Hispanic voters, which make up obviously a large percentage of district, 95% would vote yes. Democrats, 88% yes. Republicans lower support. That's typically what we see on revenue measures. But even among the Republicans in the county, 55% said they would vote yes on this measure. And then one thing I wanted to point out on the bottom of this slide here, all of the people in our sample are likely to vote in the presidential election in November of 26, basically because we know that's going to be a high turnout election. So that, among that group, it's 75% yes. But we looked at the subset that are likely to vote in the June election, which, as we expect, will be a lower turnout. And there's really not a huge difference in that group. 74% said they would vote yes. This is, again, a preliminary estimate of projected turnout in June of 2016. We don't know whether or not we'll still be involved in the presidential primary or not. But our projection really is that June may not be that different than November, and that November, the presidential election, very busy time, hard to get voter attention because of the national news. So June is something we recommend at least considering because it's an opportunity to communicate with people when there's not as much noise. Yes, of course.
Actually, on the June election as opposed to the November election, if it was to pass in June, would that qualify for the new self-help? It does qualify for the new self-help. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
And you'd be earlier. I don't know if that matters, but So we, again, not saying definitely June, but we think it's worth giving yourselves the opportunity to be able to vote on a measure potentially in June. If you're not ready, you're not ready, but it's worth it to think about that. A little bit on the funding priorities. We did ask each of these items individually and said rank these on a how high a priority on a 1 to 7 scale, and we're showing here the percentages that gave us 7, 5, 6, or a 7. Everything is important. That's the first thing. Everything gets at least a majority saying it's important. The top being the highest intensity, maintaining roads and repairing potholes. 55% rate that as a 7. 87% rate that as a priority overall. Improving transportation for youth, seniors, and people with disabilities. 68% say it's a priority overall. Widening Highway 25, 2/3. Rate that as a priority. 41% is a very high priority. And then bike and pedestrian safety, improving bus services, adding commuter train, all have their constituencies of support, and they all get a majority saying they're at least somewhat priority. We did ask a couple of these in 2013 as well, and we just wanted to show how consistent the responses have been. When we asked 2 years ago, potholes was at 80% priority. Improving transportation for seniors people with disabilities, 75% priority, widening Highway 25, adding commuter rail service. So we're seeing it. One of the things we like to see is actually consistency, because it means that this is not like some odd anomaly. You're seeing sort of consistent support here for investing in these items. The next page, page 17, we took these 4 items: widening Highway 25, road maintenance, transit improvements, and bike and pedestrian improvements. And we read that list again to the respondents and said, okay, out of those 4 items, which is actually your highest priority? What do you think it should be the highest priority? And it's interesting, when we ask it that way, widening Highway 25 comes to the top. 41% say that's my highest priority. And then 36% road maintenance is their highest priority. And then you start to see Highway 25 kind of drop off. So either you think it's the highest priority or you think it's the lowest priority, but and it's probably because that's who commutes on it. But, it's either really high priority, really low priority, whereas the road maintenance is sort of everybody, it kind of is consistent. And then bike and pedestrian improvements gets sort of the lowest, again, because most people here are still using their cars to commute. A couple of notes of caution here, because that was all like the very good news. Everybody thinks these are great things. A couple of hesitancy. There's definitely concern, as we've seen here in San Benito over the years, concern about growth. So, when the economy's not good, everyone's worried about the economy. The economy gets better, then we're all worried about growth again. There's too much residential growth and development in my area. 46% agree with that statement. Improving roads in San Benito County will just lead to more growth and sprawl. 49% agree with that. It's not a majority, but if you do a 2/3 measure, it only takes a third. And then tax attitudes. Transportation does get very high support. So it's crucial to have high quality roads and public transit, even if it means raising taxes. 72% agree with that statement. But when we just say blanket statement, taxes are already high enough, I'll vote against any increase in taxes, 47% agree with that. So just a straight up, tax, there's opposition to it. When it's specific to transportation improvements, then there's support for it. We've also seen voters here support tax increases for education. So we know there are certain topics, but just sort of a blanket general topic may not be as appealing. And I trust our local elected officials to properly manage our tax dollars. 46% agree with that, but 51% disagree with that. So there is a little hesitancy and lack of trust, which is where we think that having an actual expenditure plan, telling people where you're spending the money, having some accountability makes sense. Couple slides on transportation habits. 64% do say that they will go to work, school, or volunteer position outside their home at least 3 times a week, so they are actually commuting, 2/3 of the community. And where they're commuting, 41% are going south down to, north. Where am I? They're going north up to Santa Clara County. 38% are, I was backwards. 38% are staying here and commuting within the county. Only 9% are going south down to Monterey, 5% all the way to Santa Cruz. So you can see why the desire to widen Highway 25, because many of your commuters are going that way, and you already knew that, but that's what we see here. So just to wrap up, and then I can answer your questions. As we said, we do think this kind of supports going forward with the next steps of outreach, developing an expenditure plan, putting together a timeline, and looking at a potential for a 2016 measure. And we do think that a diverse set of projects and programs, we're not saying here exactly what you should include. Part of what this helps us to understand is that voters do want something a little more than just widening Highway 25. You'll have to do the work of what all the communities need, and then we recommend doing some additional research to figure out how to talk about some of that. But so that's where we think it's a great opportunity for the county.
Thank you. Okay, any questions, any comments? I'll invite the public up if there's anyone from the public. Denise, do you have other speaker cards on this item? Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Marty Richard from Hollister. If I understood the comments from members of the board this morning before we had this presentation, Supervisor Botello says that the district, or Caltrans, essentially says send me something if you think you can find something that we would like, or words to that effect. It's not an exact quote. Is that what you said? And Supervisor Munzer said that the state of California is considering a moratorium on all new roads. Is that correct, Supervisor Munzer? Is that what you said? A moratorium on all new roads?
It was one option in their plan.
Yeah,
for
one option in the plan. Well, if that option's in the plan, it's in there because somebody's considering it. If it was off the table, it wouldn't be there. All that considered, and then last time I discussed this with you, I was shocked to learn that what I thought was the reduced cost of Highway 25 down to $58 million was basically 2 miles of highway and maybe a flyover. And we're talking $300 million. Now, nobody would like Highway 25 to be improved more than I would. But the price is out of ridiculous. It's past ridiculous. The amount of money that it costs to do anything with a highway in California is off the charts. It is 3 times, in the last 20 years, it is more than tripled the CPI, which means it's more than tripled what people have gotten in their paychecks, essentially, because the CPI balances with what you get in your paycheck because people are after your entire paycheck. That being considered, it doesn't make any sense with those things on the table. It doesn't make any sense to put any of this tax toward Highway 25. I won't see it in my lifetime, that's for sure. But it doesn't even make any sense for the next lifetime because we have no idea where we're going here. We don't have any agreement with Caltrans they're willing to do anything that costs less than $100 million. And at the same time, we have considerations at the state and other levels are saying, well, guess what? Our new policy is, you know how we'll force public transportation? We just won't build any highways and we won't improve any highways. And we'll just let you sit out there and idle or whatever you're going to do. And that's the way they'll run the thing. So I don't understand why we would take money we need for local roads and put it into Highway 25 if that's all we're going to get. If essentially what they're going to say is it's $100 million, and when you have $100 million, and that's today it's $100 million. Who knows what it'll be when it comes time to do the highway, okay? Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Marty. Anyone else from the public on this item? I'll bring it back to the board. Supervisor Munzer first and then Batella. Okay, Supervisor Batella.
Okay, I don't disagree with much of what Mr. Richmond has stated, other than, you know, I think we have to move forward with the planning process for Highway 25. Yes, it's a take a long time, and that's why at the Council of Governments, you know, we're taking seriously about looking into alternative designs that would be more affordable, you know, to this area. And, you know, as far as the funding, it should be a phased and step-by-step project at best. But we have to start somewhere. And that's, you know, I personally took a lot of criticism when we took 25 off the constrained list, right, constrained list, in the fact that, you know, I personally could not see how we're going to afford, you know, building that road, especially when the state had made it very clear that there's not going to be any state money going to that effort for a very long time because of Highway 156, and a lot of our impact fee money is designated towards 156. So in order to put it back on the constrained list, we have to have a local funding measure. And it would be just, you know, a portion of if that tax is, you know, passed by the voters. But we would do this project in a phased fashion. It may be maybe an additional passing lane for X amount of miles on the cheapest stretch to begin with, and then down the road, something may change where the state would come in. You know, another area that people don't want to look at today, it's very unpopular, but toll roads is something that is going to be the future of funding new highways in this state. It's done in other areas of our nation and the world. But sadly, now here's the bad news. We're looking at a half-cent sales tax. What does that really generate? We had a report here last meeting of just our main arteries, and the cost to do a chip seal and an overlay is pretty extensive. And there's not a lot of money in a half cent or even a full cent for anything other than transportation. That would be very minimal for just the main roads. And I'm going to close, Madam Chair, with this, is that if we're going to put something on the ballot in 2016, we better get off the stick, decide as a board what direction we're going, whether it's to be a specific special tax dedicated to transportation, or it's going to be a general tax. But we need to make that decision, I mean, yesterday.
Yeah, I agree with you, Supervisor Batella. Supervisor Munzer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I agree with Supervisor Botello. Last year, everybody was talking about getting Highway 25 back on the constraint list. That seems to have fallen off everybody's radar.
Not mine.
Well, this is one important step to achieve that goal. We need a sales tax measure to be part of the funding mechanism, along with the increase in the impact fees, traffic impact fees, to facilitate getting Highway 25 back on the constraint list. Addressing Mr. Richmond's comment about, Caltrans in the state, this is a plan. It's under public review. It sounds like many of the transportation agencies had issues with the same part of the plan. So I think Caltrans is going to hear that, and hopefully they'll hear it loud and clear, and that will not become part of their plan. Irregardless, we need to go forward. The director mentioned some other bill in Sacramento that would allow for some funding for projects, but Highway 25 is not going to, be eligible for it because it's not on the constraint list. So we need to get it onto the constraint list, and this is a very important part of that. Having said that, at the COG meeting, I asked my fellow directors, and Mary and is going to take this presentation to both the City of Hollister and the City of San Juan and give it to them. And I asked my directors that they would ask their respective boards and councils to take a stand on whether we, as three agencies, want to support San Benito COG in going forward and studying the possibility of having a sales tax measure on the ballot in 2016. And I'm not going to say how much that sales tax is, because I think it still needs to be vetted out. And I'm asking your permission to have that agendized for our next meeting, that we end up taking a vote, a position, one way or the other, to relay it to the COG board.
Yeah, and I think we should. So if I have the consensus of the board, I'd like to do that, and then we can really hash it out. We can decide on the percentage. I still believe that it needs to be at least 1% to come to level with the city and in perpetuity. Because
Okay, just to be clarified, this is going to be a county-wide, so it's going to raise the city another 1%. It's not going to level the fill.
I'm not sure that we need to go, but it doesn't matter.
Well,
We're going to talk about it.
That's what we need to vet out,
That's
yes.
what we need to vet out. You're absolutely right. So those kind of discussions, we need to make sure that we're all clear. So, okay, so that'll be on a future agenda. And with moving forward with that, then COG, I would imagine, would then consider putting Highway 25 on the constraint list, because we are going to have a plan. Whether it's enough or not doesn't matter. We will be including 25 in the plan.
That would go a
So-
long ways to achieving that goal.
Okay, very good. Other comments from,
Well, Madam Chair, I was going to raise that issue of what you said, and so we'll wait to the meeting, because if it's going to be a countywide and it's a 1%, then the city Hollister will be short to change on this one.
right, right.
And understand that. On the other side of the coin, I've actually took a couple weeks in talking to my constituencies. I was walking in my neighborhood, I was talking to them, and gave them the news of there's a potential for a sales tax coming in, and what would they like to see if it gets approved. And all I heard from a lot of my constituency on the west side of Hollister was fix the sidewalks, bikeways, bike path, and the roads and the potholes. That's all I hear. That's all I heard from them.
And just to be, that is all part of this plan, because it's not, Highway 25 is a part of it, and road maintenance is also a part of it.
Yeah, and they also say make sure it doesn't get stuck at the end of the list that takes 10 years to get done, because the west side of Hollister is known for us to get the short end of the stick on a lot of local projects.
Supervisor Rivas?
Yeah, I think my only thoughts on this is certainly we need to do something, but at the same time, I'm have my doubts and my concerns about the public trust and the allocation of these funds. And obviously, I have a lot of the concerns with the cost of Highway 25. We received the report from AMBAG just a couple weeks ago that the costs of roads are just increasing every month, every week that we wait. And so whether that is going to be a feasible project or not in the future, in my opinion, is unlikely. But, we certainly have to do something. But, I think for me, I just, it's just going to be over time. And, we'll see what we develop and can move forward with. But I really appreciate staff's time and EMC research on the PowerPoint. Thanks so much.
Okay. Yeah, I as well. Thank you so much on behalf of the Board of Supervisors. That's a lot of very important and very good information. And along with discussing the amount of the sales tax and the sales tax in general, and Sarah, you have presented to the intergovernmental a lot of detail, so I know that you can bring that to this board now and share it with the rest of us. But I would like to also include in that a form of reaching out to the public, besides a meeting such as this, but having more informal meetings and a plan to move forward with that. Because the accountability, as EMC brought out, is a big part of making this successful. And we have to make sure that number one, that the public knows what this money could be used for, what it is that they would like to see, and give them more an opportunity to express those thoughts and ideas, and assure them that we will not be moving forward without some form of accountability. Even under a general sales tax, it's doable with a part of the language or a question on the ballot of whether a committee should be set up to address how this money is going to be spent. So that should be in the discussion as well. Any other ideas? Supervisor
Yeah,
Botello?
and going along that train of thought is, which I don't know where intergovernmental has left this, but let's hypothetically be optimistic and say that sales tax passes, and how is that split, and how is it's going to be spent?
Exactly.
And does it come, a percentage goes to the county for its road maintenance and repair? Does with correlating percentages going to the two cities, and a slice going to Highway 25? It's not the majority of the money. I mean, it's just a slice of the money. It would go 25. We got to fix our roads.
Right.
Or does the project and the money stay with COG for, some sort of priority list that is determined, through the, that board to allocate for projects of repair? And personally, I would prefer that the sales tax get is split out and brought back to the county for allocations for our priorities and our discussion, and spent that way rather than, you know, the cities weighing in what's a priority on county roads.
Yeah.
Okay.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
But Supervisor Botello, I understand with you, and I kind of tend to agree with you in terms of that if it's going to be for transport roads and repairs, local roads and repairs and the sidewalks and the bikeways, we got to fund that. It's just have to, and those potholes. At the same time, if no relationships ever generated, you know, with the city halls or city of San Juan and San Benito County, then we shouldn't be surprised if the city hauler goes on their own and tries to get a 1% sales tax on their own. So now we will be having competing sales tax measures on the ballot, and that might not be good for everyone involved, because people will say, you know what, there's just too many tax ballots on the ballot, and I don't know if I can support any of them. So that's something that we have to consider too.
Yeah, you know, what I think what could, and that's right, and that's why we have to have that discussion at some level as far as what the split would be.
Right.
And so the city of Hollister could go on the west side of you know, your district, your area there, and put the sidewalks. Well, all kidding
I
aside,
agree,
that's a
that's
very
right.
big need out there, and undeniable. But you know, we need to have a chip seal overlay on Union Road, so that, you know, or on Fairview, you know, that's be a growing need out there too. And we just have to come to an agreement, split that money similar to what we do with STIP when we get that funding, and everybody kind of deal with the issues and problems that they're most familiar with.
Yeah, and that was expressed at intergovernmental, that really, in order for this to be successful, that we do need to bring the entire county, the two cities, San Benito County, and really all have the same passion and effort so that we can make this
If we're not,
pass.
if we're not working together, we don't deserve the public trust.
Exactly. CAO Espinosa?
Yeah, that's what I was going to mention. And one of the things that came out of the intergovernmental was to be on the same playing field. So 8.5% was something that actually came out of the intergovernmental. So one of the plans from administration is to actually account for that, and we'll plan on bringing that back to your board at our next board meeting for this particular item, and understand kind of what that means to the local agencies, as well as how that works out with COG and the road maintenance. The other thing I want to add to that is we're not the only county in the same situation. I just had a meeting with city managers for the Tri-County area, along with the CAOs in Monterey County, and COG happened to be there. And Monterey County, all of the cities there, along with the CAO, I mean, this is a mirror image of what's going on in our county, is how the breakout's going to be for the cities, what does that mean for roads, what does that mean from a dollars and cents point of view, infused into the local city agencies. So we're not the only ones. So they're working on that, and as well as we're working on it as well. So.
All right, thank you. We'll go ahead and move on and see this on an agenda item as soon as possible. So, and thank you, COG, for the presentation. Thank you, EMC. Okay, we'll move on to item number 21, CAO Espinosa.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, item 21 on our agenda is another item of hot discussion for the state, and that has to do with water. At our last board meeting, April 7th, your board requested a follow-up meeting, so here we are today. This is regards to Governor Brown's Executive Order B-29-15, imposing restrictions from the State Water Resources Control Board, achieving a statewide 25% reduction of potable urban water usage through February 28th of 2016. There have been some discussions with CSAC, the Water Board staff, along with county officials throughout the state, and there will be some more continued discussions as well coming up here this week. But today we have our our local water agencies here. We'd like to present Dawn Ridinghauer, General Manager, Sunny Slope Water, to first come and give a presentation. We also have Jeff Catano from our San Benito County Water District that will be following, but they're going to go ahead and highlight kind of where we're at within our county and how that how the water districts are affected by this executive order.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. The Sunny Slope County Water District Board will actually be considering a water supply emergency resolution tonight at their board meeting. Some of the kind of components of that resolution that they'll be considering is a mandatory reduction of water, and actually Sunny Slope County Water District, in the latest update of the proposed regulations from the state, has spelled out they're going to mandate 28% reduction from Sunny Slope County Water District. So how we get there is going to be a challenge for our district. Where we're going to start is making conservation mandatory, and we're going to step up our efforts through the Water Resources Association with the assistance of Sean Novak, who's here also today. What I'm proposing the board consider is limiting irrigation, outside irrigation of landscaping to 2 days a week, which is consistent with a mandate that's already been adopted by the Water Resources Control Board. One hot item, and I know you're probably getting questions, and I'm certainly getting questions, and my staff is getting questions, is about new development. We're going to be limiting new development landscaping to drip and micro spray, which is essentially, it doesn't eliminate lawns, but it makes it very, very impractical to put in lawns. And we only have 3 developments that are active right now. We'll have homes either coming online on Sunny Slope County Water District's water system during this calendar year, and that's Santana Ranch, Creekside 6, and Tyler Knoll developments. And I don't expect a lot of homes this year in our district. It's actually, we've had less in this fiscal year than we did the prior. But I've talked with the developers involved, and all of them have acknowledged that they're not going to be putting grass in their front yards when they landscape these new houses as they come online. If this drought worsens, I don't know where our district will go regarding water connections. I mean, if it's another dry year, we'll have to take that as it comes and decide where the district, stands with water supply and supplying new development. One issue where the county could help us with new development is model landscape ordinance would be very helpful in us enforcing restrictions on new development landscaping. That's something that we would really like the county to consider. So our restrictions are 2 days a week. The others are mostly restrictions that are really in place in one kind or another already. One thing that I'll be discussing with my board tonight is whether we need to hire staff, which I think we're going to probably need to do that. And I've had discussions with San Benito County Water District staff and with City of Hollister staff about doing that in a joint way where at least the City of Hollister and Sunny Slope County Water District's message is uniform. The state currently isn't requiring them to reduce their water consumption quite as much as Sunny Slopes. The message can still be consistent in how we enforce. The proposed resolution that my board will be considering also has fines involved, so violation fines. We hope we don't go there. We hope to see compliance. Another thing that we may be considering in the next month or two is do we need some emergency charge or a kind of excessive water use charge if we don't get compliance. I'm really concerned about how the state's going to impose their enforcement and what they're talking about is daily fines if water agencies don't meet the mandated reductions by agency. So that's pretty much it for Sunny Slope at this point, and I'd be happy to answer any questions. And I know Jeff Catano and Sean Novak are also here and can answer questions, that are more general, more broad about the county.
Okay. Supervisor Patella?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. How was the conservation numbers established? You know, in our packet, there, every community seems that there's a different standard, and I just don't quite understand that. And our area, we're kind of in a closed basin, and I think relatively speaking, comparatively to other areas of the state, we're not as quite as dire as it could be, but we're being asked to conserve as just like anywhere else.
Yeah, how they set the limits, and the latest 28% is as of Saturday. So, so it's a moving target, at least for Sunny Slope. How they set the limits, at least as of the Saturday proposal or recommended mandates by the Water Resources Control Board, is they looked at our water use for last summer, June through September. The original mandates were going to be 25% for Sunny Slope, and they looked at our water use. They changed that, which is probably makes more sense than to look at a single month, but they based it on per capita water use. And Sunny Slope's a fairly rural water agency. The customers we serve is not very dense, so we're going to have water use that's going to be larger or likely larger than even the city of Hollister, and we do. We're a little more spread out, larger lots, than not quite as dense as the city of Hollister. And likewise, if you look at water agencies throughout the state, you know, the lower per capita demands are going to be dependent on weather, you know, weather patterns and density of a community, of how much outside, you know, landscaping they have. We're going to target landscaping because I think that's where, you know, the biggest bang for the buck we can get is in the biggest reductions we can see is in landscaping. We're not going to go after the customers that are already using minimal amounts of water, and you can look at their, you know, their water use both summertime and wintertime and see where their water use is. So we're going to be targeting the heavy irrigation customers, but that's how they came up with the numbers. And it is unfortunate it's this one size fits all throughout the state, or it's varying by agency, but it's based on water use, and not everybody's water supply situation is the same. You know, I have a lot of familiarity with the far north coast, and they're being mandated the same as, you know, say the desert areas in Southern California, and yet their water supplies are very secure this year and in most years. So it isn't an easy mandate to meet on the state's part. This is the first time the state's done this statewide.
Thank you.
Supervisor Rivas?
Yeah, so, you know, in reading the executive order, there's, you know, and reading the news what other local governments are doing. There's obviously a variety of things that, you know, residents can do to reduce their consumption of water. And so in your opinion, what are the easiest ways that residents can reduce water usage?
The easiest ways is to cut their outside landscape irrigation. You know, all the other things they can do inside are a big help, and we really have an active program. We have a turf rebate program. We're talking amongst each other at staff level about increasing how much rebate and how much turf, you know, we would rebate for replacing, but it's really all about outside irrigation. All the other items, you know, residents, customers need to be conscious of their water use, but outside irrigation happens kind of outside their vision. They don't really have a comprehension of how much water is really going on their landscaping, and so that's where our effort and our focus is going to be.
Okay, and so to apply for like a turf rebate, they would just contact your office or go online. Is there information on your website?
There is, and actually if you call our office, we're going to refer you to the Water Resources Association and Sean Novak, and we have links on our website to the Water Resources Association website, and we'll give, you know, customers general information, but we work very closely with them. They represent the Sunny Slope, the city of Hollister, and San Juan Bautista in their water conservation efforts. And
Excellent.
I think it's very efficient for us as multi-agencies to work together on this sort of thing, and that's why we're having those discussions with at least with the city of Hollister about joining efforts on hiring additional staff.
Thank you.
Supervisor Munzer, I'm sorry, and then Supervisor De La Cruz?
Okay, Don, so you have a different goal, mandated goal, for reductions in the city of Hollister?
That's correct, yes.
So your customers in the city of Hollister would have a different reduction that they would have?
That's correct.
So the person that your customer is, let's say 28% for you, and
Right.
the person across the street might be 25%?
Yeah, I believe the city of
Whatever
Hollister's
the
is
city
20%.
Whatever it is?
Yeah, that's correct.
Ooh, that's going to be rough.
Well,
to
it makes
explain.
messaging difficult, is to have a uniform message, but it's that conservation, across the board. And so like I mentioned, we're not going to start getting aggressive with customers who use very little water. We're going to be looking at our highest use customers, and we're going to have a lot of personal contact with them to try and get them to reduce water.
Okay,
Because I don't relish the fines from the state. It's going to cost our district in revenue, an awful lot of money this year if we meet the goals that we have to meet.
And then I guess I would want to say that I would be all in favor of anything we can do to assist you, because I know, I'm sure that my other fellow supervisors are getting the emails from the people, and I'm hearing the comments, is why do I have to reduce my water usage when you're allowing all these other homes to go in? You're allowing all these homes to be built. So we need to work together and make sure that these new homes are water efficient and that the landscaping is not the way it used to be, where large amounts of lawns are going in. But a drought-tolerant landscaping is the norm. So if we have to come up with the ordinance to support that, I'd be happy to support that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor De La Cruz?
Well, actually, I'm going to start off where Supervisor Munzer finished, because that's exactly what I was going to ask. More of a comment than a question is, if we are getting executive orders from Governor Brown, and if it doesn't meet the requirements of those target numbers, and then what's the next executive order he's going to implement? No development in the community? And, do we go, is that the direction we're going to be going? And how do we as elected officials now treat projects that are going through the process and say, you need to change your landscaping business, you need to change water consumption, you got to go with gray well, you got to use alternative water. What steps are we going to go now? If the 20% doesn't meet the requirement that the governor wants to have, and then he'll implement a no-growth executive order down the road.
The items you mentioned are exactly those, is restricting the landscaping, looking at gray water, looking at all those efficiency tools to reduce that impact, or, if it continues to stay dry and get, and our existing customers are really being asked to suffer, we really will have to grapple with that question of, how many new connections do we allow each year, or do we allow any? And that's something that certainly, Sunny Slopes Board is going to have to think about. And it could come, as early as later this year or next year if things continue to get worse or we run into trouble with meeting the state's mandates. I really hope we don't go to that. I don't think that would be good for kind of our local economy and, the jobs situation in this community and so on. But honestly, if we can't get there and we're really hearing from our customers that they can't do more, that has to be on the table for consideration.
I want to thank you. You're done. I want to thank you for reaching out to the developers. We asked that. I know that we had an agreement already with, like, Santana Ranch.
Right.
But I don't believe, they're very much aware of our situation, the situation statewide. So the fact that you reached out to them and they're in agreement, I think that speaks volumes in how everybody's making that effort. So continue that, and I think that will serve us to meet those percentages.
Yeah.
And I think you have the support of this board to be consistent with the message. So if we could have a copy, and I would direct you to our CAO on your resolution that you're presenting this evening, you
I
said?
have copies here I can leave with your clerk, so.
Okay, please. Yeah, and we do have, okay. So I appreciate that effort, and you're right. The message has to be in unity, and I think we will. We've already made some really great strides, even though it wasn't mandated.
Right.
We have, I believe you're at 11% reduction.
We
in
actually, the timeframe the state's measuring, we actually got 14% last year.
14%, that is correct.
So that was with, effort, but not the level of effort that will be, making this year. So, but to double that, that's going to be a challenge.
It's going to be a challenge,
Yeah.
but I believe that it can be done with us all working
Yeah.
together. So, okay, Supervisor Rivas?
Yeah, and I apologize, I had to step out, and so this may have been addressed when I was out of the room, and you had mentioned too in your opening remarks, but we're about to approve a general plan, and we anticipate to have a number of projects before this board soon, whether it be hopefully some commercial projects or. But most likely, we're going to have a whole bunch of residential projects. If this thing prolongs, if the drought gets worse, what kind of impact is that going to have on new development and the progress of new development? And how can we as a board work with you guys? Because I think the last thing that should happen is we approve all these projects and then nothing is built out. How can we prevent that from happening?
Mandating, the most efficient use of water in these new developments is the best thing that your board could do to help, a district like Sunny Slopes to minimize their impact on the water supplies that we're providing to our customers. So that landscape ordinance would be helpful. The gray water, which I know you've had some discussions with, so you just minimize the impact that those developments will have on our demands, our water demands. And hopefully we have a wet year this coming winter, and we look at this in the rearview mirror, but we don't know that's going to be the case, how long this is going to last.
Okay. Supervisor Botello, another question?
Yeah, I'm, way I felt about it last year, even if we had a wet year this year, it's not a be in a rearview mirror. We need a
Right.
series of wet years, and
That's correct.
it's very, very scary for somebody like myself in agriculture right now. What I wanted to ask you, and with your water district, you have wastewater treatment. How's the progression of, utilizing some of that into the purple type of use? And is that progressing a little bit more with an urgent sense now, or for your district and maybe the San Bernardino County Water District?
I wouldn't say it's progressing fast, mostly because of the expense. The water at our wastewater, from our wastewater plant, it's not like it's put in a pipe and discharged to a stream that leaves this county. It is percolated back into the ground, so it's not lost water per se. But it's very expensive to build recycled water, and I know I get complaints, so I would be surprised if some of you who have constituents in Sunny Slopes wastewater service area don't hear about it. Our wastewater rates are very high, and I don't relish the idea of raising them more or raising water rates more to build recycled water at this time. It is something that we're starting an effort to update the Hollister Urban Area Water Master Plan with the City of Hollister. We're going to relook at recycled water for Sunny Slopes area. That will be a consideration, and we'll look at the cost estimates. The cost estimates for that are very high, and so how best to do that in a way that has at least impact on our customers and makes the most beneficial use of that water is what we'd be interested in.
Yeah,
But it takes years to develop a project like that.
And hopefully we keep that in mind with this board, as the future with the regional park should be probably irrigated with recycled water.
Exactly.
So we have to keep, work together to accomplish that. Thanks.
I know San Bernardino County Water District has a project they're working on this summer to bring some of the City of Hollister's water to an agricultural area north and west, edge of the City of Hollister that will utilize some of their recycled water. But these projects cost money, and so we're out there looking for grant opportunities where we can, but trying to minimize those impacts to our customers.
Thank you, Don. Thank you for all
Yeah.
your information. And we have somebody else coming up, okay?
Thanks for the
On the same
opportunity to
item.
update
Thank
you.
you. Right.
Good morning. So for the San Benito County Water District, we're in a little different situation than Sunny Slope in that we don't have really direct urban customers that we deliver water to. So our water conservation and water rationing is a little bit different. We have contracts with our customers and accounts for the San Benito County Water District in addition to supplying the urban water for the city of Hollister and Sunny Slope. So when our allocations get reduced from the Bureau of Reclamation, which is that imported water, we have a specific amount of water that we deliver to our customers. So it is in effect a mandatory rationing because they only get so much water before we actually shut their accounts off. What I did want to mention, though, is that there's a lot of attention that's drawn to conservation and reductions when we run into these drought periods, and they're all cyclical. We'll come out of the drought period, and folks will feel like, okay, it's okay. We're in a good position now. Water is not an issue. It needs to be something that we do every single day, every year, because with our water supply here, yes, we're in good shape in the county overall relative to a lot of other areas, particularly if you look at the Central Valley. When we entered into this drought 3 years ago, our water basin was effectively full. That water basin was full because the water district has a contract with the Bureau of Reclamation to import water. Without that imported water supply, our water basin would be in the same situation as the Central Valley is. It takes about 20,000 acre-feet of water a year imported for us to keep our basin in balance. This year, for my agricultural customers, I got a zero allocation. I got a zero allocation of water last year. That normally, is about 17 to 20,000 acre-feet a year is what we get on an average year if you look for a long period of time. So we're effectively in a deficit right now in our basin. As far as looking at it, we're in a deficit of probably about 40 or 50,000 acre-feet, which is significant. When you look at the basin as a whole, the usable storage in our basin is about 500,000 acre-feet. Which is pretty big if you think about it. San Luis Reservoir holds about 2 million acre-feet of water. So about 25% of the capacity of San Luis Reservoir is what we have in our reserve here in San Benito County in our general basin. But we've used 10% of that. And so it's not like we're going to run out of water today or tomorrow or next year. We could weather this for a number of years and still be able to manage our water supply. It's what comes after that. Our water supply, from the Central Valley project has been reduced because of a lot of environmental concerns and reductions in the pumping and the capacity that the amount of water that we've gotten. So, looking long term, the challenge is going to be to manage those imported supplies and try to figure out how we're going to be able to augment that so that we get that 20,000 acre-feet of water a year that we need on average to be able to keep our basin in balance. Without that, we're going to have to look at how we're going to manage that. And one of those things that's coming up that nobody has mentioned is the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act that the state passed last year. Most agencies, if you're in a medium priority basin, which we are in, a medium priority basin, will have until 2040 to actually get all of those requirements in place and make sure that our basin is in balance. But we don't want to wait that long. We're going to be working on it and trying to get those things in place within the next 5 years and get our program moving forward because it's so important to make sure that the basin is balanced. But if you can't get that imported water supply and you can't figure out how to manage and reduce your consumption within the basin and if you stay in deficit, then there's going to have to be basically mandatory restrictions on everybody within the basin. Agriculture, urban, everybody's going to have to share in the pain. And that's going to be difficult. That's not where we want to go. With respect to what you folks are looking at and what we're asking you to do, that model landscape ordinance, it's important because it'll help us manage the urban supply that we've got. The Water District was successful in negotiating with the Bureau of Reclamation about 1.5 years ago to actually increase our urban water supply by about 50%. So the amount of water that the Bureau of Reclamation allocates to us we were able to go to them and negotiate with them to increase our water supply that we would get on average by about 50%. That was in order to help cover, the need that we had. We demonstrated that we had a need when we were building these water treatment plants because it was so important to have a higher quality water to be able to deliver to the city of Hollister and Sunny Slope residents, which in turn, that the recycle water project that Dawn was talking about, it makes the water coming out of the reclamation plant suitable for agricultural irrigation, where it really isn't right now. So the water district's got a $3 million project that we're building right now. We're just about ready to go to construction on it to do a recycle water project out the Wright Road, Buena Vista area. That project alone, within the next couple of years, will add about 10% to the agricultural water supply that we get. So that's an important project, but what it requires is that we have the good quality water coming in on the front end to the city of Hollister residents so that we can ask them to get rid of their water softeners and to be able, to increase that water supply. The other thing that Don was talking about is that turf rebate program. What a lot of people don't realize, and Sean's got the information for you, is that your average turf area in our area takes 80 inches of water a year. So it's like up here. That's how many inches of water that turf takes to irrigate it and keep it green each year. What we get from in our water supply from rain, from precipitation, is only 13. So you've got a 67-inch deficit that you've got to make up. So increasing those programs for the turf rebate programs to remove turf from the residents in the city of Hollister and Sunny Slope is actually a benefit that if we can incorporate that into the development of new projects and there's some way that helps fund removal of turf in the city of Hollister, then that makes that water supply go further. And it gives you more justification to say, well, we can do this development because we're actually reducing our water consumption overall. If you look at 2003, if you look at the year 2003 for our records, the municipal and industrial, basically the urban water use in the city of Hollister, Sunny Slope, and a few of our outlying areas like San Juan Bautista, there was 11,000 acre-feet of water used in those areas. If you look at 2013, there was only 8,850 acre-feet of water use. So there was actually a net reduction because of all the conservation programs that Sean has been working on to help get those toilet rebates, all of the stuff that he's been doing. There's been a net reduction overall. And he's got more numbers for you that'll show you what the average consumption is in the homes. But so we are making progress, and we are moving towards being much more efficient. What Dawn was talking about, the one-size-fits-all, is unfortunate for us because our basin was in good shape, and we still have plenty of water to deliver. So it's not like we're going to run out of water this year. So but unfortunately, we don't have a choice. We have to do what the state is requiring us to do. So.
Well, thank you, thank you. Any questions?
No, I just have a comment. I really appreciate the chair taking the time with this. This is probably the most important issue the state is facing right now.
Absolutely.
And some of the numbers that you've quoted, it's quite educational. I didn't realize lawns took that much quantity of water. And your district has done a great job in managing, the availability of water. Myself, I think I have a 10% allocation of blue valve water, which I'm scared to open up the faucet because you doubled the rate, but I thank you for that.
Yeah, well, that's one of the other things too. We did pass a water shortage emergency resolution, so we're in the same position as the city of Hollister and Sunny Slope. It's a little bit different. So for our customers, there is a fairly hefty penalty if they go over their water use before we actually get out there and shut it down. So it's effectively $2,000 an acre foot. Our normal water rate for an urban customer is $240 an acre foot. So if they go over, it's a pretty hefty penalty. That's not because we just want to charge them a lot of money. That's actually what it's going to cost me to find that water on the open market right now. That's what it's selling for. If agricultural customers in the valley are paying over $2,000 an acre foot for water when they can find it. So it's very difficult to find any additional water right now, so when you can, it's going to be very expensive.
Yeah,
And
being
you, oh, go ahead.
being an agriculturalist, it's pretty frustrating to start seeing the fingers being pointed. Well, agriculture uses 80% of the water in the state, and they're the biggest water wasters. And if you just eliminate the almond industry, we're not in a drought, and nothing could be more of a fallacy and irresponsible than those type of comments and what we need to do as Californians. And I'm happy you brought and mentioned the urban water and municipal increase of percentage. That's really key for our county, in the fact that if you can eliminate the softeners, now that we've switched over to pumping groundwater to irrigate our crops, which is the quality is nowhere near as good as the surface water. The San Felipe water, the salts is a huge problem for whatever crop you're growing. And personally, I use potassium, which is a little bit better than salt, but it's at a $22 a 40-pound bag compared to $5. And I don't blame anybody for buying the sodium salt for their softeners, but we got to eliminate the softeners out of this community, improve our quality of our basin, where we could sustain our agricultural livelihood in the county. But I thank you for everything you're doing, Jeff.
Yeah, Jeff, thank you so much for
Sure.
your presentation. And I guess you asked about that ordinance, you want us to support it. So, Council, I don't know, I know we've talked about the landscape ordinance, but are we anywhere near at this point?
Madam Chair, yes, we've been working with the ad hoc committee on that. We still haven't really come to a final resolution on amending the landscaping ordinance. We're still working with that. I think Sean Novak and Supervisor Rivas and staff, we've been meeting. We've been trying to, get through this process, but there's been some hurdles, so we're going to continue to put that on the agenda and come to a final
I
resolution.
think that would be good, and I think at this time, this is more than ever, we need to address the water. Sean, if you could come up. And what we'll do is, after Sean is done, are you the last presenter for this item, Sean?
I am, yes.
Okay, then we'll take a real short break and then come back and continue the meeting. So, Sean, go ahead.
Yeah, good morning,
Thank
Madam
you.
Chair and rest of the board members. I'm glad Jeff meant to say, the future, this is the new water reality. We've been really good about answering the call to reduce our water usage when we've had droughts in the past, but we can't go back now. The state continues to increase in population. Water is a finite resource. The prospects of climate change, how that will impact our water supply. So water has to be used as efficiently as possible. Some of the programs that the city, Sunny Slope, and the district have helped set up in my department can help people achieve that. The main thing, we're known for our toilet program. The toilet, if you don't have a low-flow toilet, uses almost 28% of your total indoor water usage, and that's why we harp on that. If you have an older toilet made before 1992, chances are it flushes at 3.5 to 7 gallons per flush. New ones are at 1.28 gallons per flush. We've swapped out almost 8,000 toilets since the Water Resources has been in business, and we identified about 12,000 of those high-consumption toilets still in circulation. So I'm sure some have been changed without us knowing, but there's still quite a few out there, so I urge people to find out what kind of toilet they have and call me if they need help. But we have free toilets for people. They have to install them, but we can give you a free toilet. And then we need to focus on the outside, because in residential water use, 50 to 60% of residential water use is for landscape purposes. In our findings, when we go out to people's homes, of that amount, almost 50% is wasted due to improper scheduling of their irrigation, malfunctioning equipment, or just overusage. In our areas, it's kind of tricky to irrigate because we have clay soils. A lot of those pop-up sprinklers you see in the older houses put too much water on at once. And so that creates runoff. That water is going nowhere but to the gutter, which does nobody any good. So Again, my agency can help people adjust those and do a suggested irrigation schedule so you can reduce your runoff. So it's really important. And, you know, we have programs, we have rebates on high-efficiency irrigation equipment. We have these new spray nozzles that are called MP rotators, and they're great for our clay soils because they put water out at a low volume, allowing it to absorb into the clay soil. And then the turf program, as Jeff mentioned, has been going gangbusters. We've removed almost 40,000 square feet of turf since it started last July. And with the exposure of the drought, we're going to do much more than that this year. But as Jeff said, you know, we focus on turf because it's the highest using landscape material in people's landscapes. So I always tell people it's not that I'm anti-turf if you have dogs or kids and you need an area to play in, but I always say the only time you're on your grass or turf is when you're mowing it. You got too much turf. So, you know, keep that in consideration. We're paying $1 a square foot up to 500 square feet right now. But we do have to do a pre-inspection before you start removing it, so make sure that people call us. We also have to make sure that the grass is somewhat intact, that we realize we've been asking people to cut back so there's brown spots out there and stuff, but we have to confirm that it has been irrigated at one time or another. And then once we do that, we can work out the details of the program. But people have been responding really well. Some people are getting really creative, and I hope to put some pictures together because it's amazing what people's imaginations they're able to do with that area. But anyway, while I'm here, I want to give out my phone number. It's 637-4378. That's for the Water Resources Association. Again, we represent Sunny Slope, City of Hollister, City of San Juan Bautista, and Zone 6 of the San Benito County Water District, which is a ring around the urban area. So we'd be glad to help anybody if they just need information. Please visit our website. We got tons of information on there. It's WRASBC.org. And again, I urge everyone, one of our most popular programs is what we call a home water survey. And what we do, it's a free service. Send out Leo Vasquez, my assistant here, who's so good at helping people. But we speak Spanish and English, can help everybody in the community. We go out to people's homes and first see if there's any leaks in the house. If there is a leak and it's something minor, like a toilet flapper that's malfunctioning, we can replace it for you. We can put in low-flow shower heads, faucet aerators, give you a hose nozzle to use outside, because some of these restrictions call for a shut-off nozzle when you're washing your car. We can give you that for free. We can also look at your irrigation system, provide recommendations, adjust it so the sprinkler heads aren't spraying on sidewalks and driveways, and then work out an irrigation schedule to follow with these new restrictions. Now, one thing I want to tell you about the restrictions is a lot of people I'm getting questions about. They're like, I cut back 20% last year. Now they're asking for 25% more. The restrictions are based on your 2013 water consumption. So if you did do 20% last year, you just need to crank it up 5% more. So it's not as big an onus as it seems. Restricting watering to 2 days a week, irrigating, that's what we recommend this time of year anyway. That's even if we had all the water in the world. So it's not that big. The hardship's going to come in our peak season as far as the hottest time of year, which is late June, July, August, and early September. We usually recommend 3 times a week at that time, but I'm convinced that we can really help people if they get their irrigation system, you know, efficient, that we can spread that water around. I'm also telling people to prioritize what they want to keep in their yard. And lawn, even when it goes brown, can usually come back once we get some good rain. So anyway, I don't think it's as big a hardship as people are making it out to be. We just need an effort from everybody, and it's for the benefit of everybody, locally, countywide, statewide. So I just ask everybody to do their share, and we can help you.
Sean,
Okay?
thank you so much.
All right.
We appreciate all the effort that your department makes. I see you out there at a lot of events, putting out, you know, flyers, talking to people, answering questions. That's the way we're going to do it.
That's right.
Is by being visible and being there to help folks out.
Yeah,
So-
I want to tell people we're going to be at the Healthy Kids Day at the Y this Saturday, so if
Good.
you have questions about that, we'll be at the farmers markets when they set up in May, when they start opening again. And we have some other workshops and stuff that we're going to outreach to the public on. So we'll be doing a lot of activities, but any chance to talk to us, any questions you have, and any question, even if I don't know the answer, I got a great group of people that I can go ask and get the answer to.
Yeah,
So
please give us that number because people at home may be watching.
it's 637-4378.
Thank you. Any questions of Sean before he sits? Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. If, CAO, if we're done with this presentation, we'll go ahead and take a short break, come back and finish out our meeting and go into closed session. Thank you.
No, I was going to listen to a voicemail, but I can listen to it later. They don't listen to my voicemail.
Sarah, can you get Ray for us, please? Sarah, when you get Ray, is he coming? Oh. Okay, we're going to resume our regular agenda. And it was brought to my attention that I didn't ask for public comments on item number 21, so my apologies. Do we have any speaker cards?
Marvin asked me to go first. Can't help it, he wanted me to go first because he has to go play bridge or something. Marty Richmond, I just want to put a plug in because I was afraid to buy one of these new high-efficiency washers because I had read lots and lots of reviews about how lousy they were in the first generation, how many problems they got. I got a second generation, and because I bought a high-efficiency washer, got rid of a 25-year-old washer, I got a $100 rebate from the Water Resources folks. I just want to put a plug in. They clean it at least as good as my old washer, and they use like 2 inches of water. It's quite amazing, and it was reasonably priced. They got a whole, you can go to wherever your favorite shopping place is, and they got a whole plethora of those from soup to nuts. And the most important point is the first generation ones, just like the first generation light bulbs, the little ones that look like pretzels, were really lousy. The first generation washers had terrible reviews in almost all the consumer magazines. I was afraid to buy one. I waited for the second generation to come around so that they got the kinks out of it. And I got to tell you, it works. And I have no idea how many gallons of water that saves me a year, but it must be a lot because our old washer filled all the way up almost all the time, no matter what we set it at. So it can be done. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Marty. Marvin Jones?
Thank you, Mayor and board members. It's about 6-7 years ago when I took out my water softener. That was when San Benito Water District was worried about the total dissolved solids and its impact on the lettuce and the broccoli. I took it out about 5 or 6 years ago, 7 years ago. In any case, I find it extremely frustrating that the federal government says we've got to let the snow runoff run into the bay to save the Delta smelt, a non-native species. It just aggravates me to no end that the federal government says they know better what is for the Delta smelt than you know for your apple orchards. I better not say anything else because they may be watching on the closed circuit TV. The other point I wanted to make was that It was about 3 years ago, I started putting the bucket in the shower. And that's where my plum tree and my pear tree get their water. I do irrigate the cherry and the orange, but backyard, hadn't had any water, at least irrigation water, in quite a while. It's still there, almost. Front yard's down, getting some orange blades. They're not brown yet, but they're orange. And I'd like to keep the flower beds going, my lettuce and cabbage, and my lettuce and tomatoes, excuse me. But I have cut back. I was glad to hear Sean say that they're not going to take today as zero. You got to deduct 20%. That it is at least what I used a couple of years ago. Is going to be baseline, and 20% from there. I may be halfway there already. But in any case, federal government's causing some of the problem. They're here to help you, and they're a good bit of this water problem. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Anyone else from the public regarding item number 21? Okay, we'll bring it back, and that was information, and we've given directions. So we'll go to item number 22. CAO Espinosa?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, we're on item number 22 this morning, and I have Sarah Fontanos here to explain to you a little bit about this. And this particular item is dealing with our RRP and also the ad hoc.
Okay.
Sarah?
I'm hoping this is a simple one. Maybe I shouldn't say that quite yet. But the clerk was kind enough to point out to me that the Resource Recovery Park Ad Hoc Committee wasn't appointed during the new calendar cycle. So I wanted to give you, Madam Chair, the opportunity to do that. It is, as of the last year, April 1st, 2014, is Supervisor Munzer and Botello. There are still some things to be worked out, recommendations to be made, things to be looked at. So I just want to make sure I do have that ad hoc committee, the right one for this year, set up so I can put that work in.
Yeah, and we had Supervisor Munzer and Supervisor Botello on that committee, and I believe that there is some history already. They have done some work, and so I'm going to go ahead and keep them on there so that that work can continue and can be consistent with what they've done before. We don't need to have a learning curve, so I think I'll just go ahead and continue that same committee. So,
Sounds
with your
great.
acceptance. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Public
Okay.
comment.
Public comment on this ad hoc committee for the resource recovery part? Okay, bring it back for item number 23, and
Thank-
that is Byron, CAO, if you can introduce that, please.
Yes, this item, again, this has been an ongoing item. We've brought it back to you at every board meeting. Are bringing it back again. We have Byron Turner, our interim planning director, here to give you an update of where we're at with the general plan.
Just give you a brief update. We're moving forward. On April 13th, we had a public meeting with the Planning Commission to take public comments on the draft environmental impact report. We did not get much of a turnout. We got one comment, so that's one down. I don't expect as many comments as we got last time, partly because we've been through this before. We circulated an environmental document. We got comments on it. The consultant heard the comments, saw the comments, and is addressing a lot of those as part of this document. So we do anticipate less comments, although I have been in touch with some of the regional agencies, and I do expect it to ramp up in the next 2 weeks or so. But May 7th is the deadline that we'll be taking public comments on the draft environmental impact report. And then, based on the comments, we'll schedule Planning Commission and Board accordingly, because we need to respond to those comments as part of the final EIR. In your packet, I gave you the presentation that we had on Monday night at the meeting, as well as the executive summary of the EIR, because the document is this thick, but it gives you an idea of what we're looking at. So if you have any questions, I can respond to them here. Otherwise, I'll be back in 2 weeks to tell you where we're at.
Okay, any questions from Byron? Any comments from the public regarding the general plan? It looks like it's moving along in the same timeline that we had.
Yep.
And that hasn't changed. Byron, thank you for this update. And I think the public is happy to know that we're nearing the end
Yep.
of this process. So, thank you. Okay. All right, council, if you could inform the public on the closed session items. Pardon? I did open it for public comment, yeah. There were none.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
The Board of Supervisors will now adjourn into closed session to discuss agenda items number 24 through 28 on today's agenda. Agenda item number 24 is to meet and confer with the county's real property negotiators regarding property located at 1135 San Felipe Road. The APN on that is 51-110-034. That's located in Hollister, California. The agency negotiators are Alan Yamamoto, Behavioral Health Services Director, Joe Horwittle, Interim Public Works Director, Ray Espinoza, CAO, Matthew Granger, County Counsel, Shirley Murphy, Deputy County Counsel, and Joe Paul Gonzalez will be joining us today in his auditor capacity. The negotiating party is George L. Renz. Under negotiation are the price and terms of payment. The authority to meet in closed session can be found in California Government Code Section 54956.8. Agenda item number 25 is to meet and confer with legal counsel regarding anticipated litigation and the initiation of litigation pursuant to subdivision D4 of Government Code Section 54956.9 in one case. Agenda item number 26 is to meet and confer with legal counsel regarding anticipated litigation and the significant exposure to litigation pursuant to subdivision D of Section 54956.9, also in one case. This closed session is authorized by Section 54956.9 D2E2. On March 16, 2015, the County Counsel's Office received a pre-filing complaint from BMC Promise Way, LLC, doing business as Benchmark Communities, which challenges the annexation fee as applied to a vesting map approved December 19, 2013. Agenda item number 27 is to meet and confer with legal counsel regarding anticipated litigation and the significant exposure thereof pursuant to subdivision D2E3 of Government Code 54956.9 in one case. The facts and circumstances justifying this closed session is the passage of Measure J on October 21st, 2014, and the adoption of the Measure J implementing ordinance and multiple letters regarding Measure J exemption process. Finally, agenda number 28 is to meet and confer with legal counsel regarding existing litigation under subdivisions A and D1 of Section 54956. This case is the Center for Biological Diversity versus San Benito County et al., filed in the Superior Court of California in the County of Monterey under case number M123956, and the appeal of Citadel Exploration versus Center for Biological Diversity, San Benito County et al., filed in the Court of Appeal in the 6th Appellate District under case number H041650.
Thank you. And before we adjourn to closed session, do we have any idea how long this is going to be? Will we need to break for lunch and return?
Closed session will probably be an hour.
An hour. So
Yeah,
I
or
will
more.
ask the board if they would like to continue with closed session items and complete the day and not have to come back after lunch, or...
Madam Chair, I have a memorial service at 2 o'clock.
Okay.
So that's the only thing, I probably should go to.
All right.
And,
So
but
you
that's
would
the only
rather
thing.
that we continue the closed session
For at least some of the items, and then we could finish it after lunch, or we.
Okay. All right, and,
If we can finish by 12:30, I'm good.
okay, let's make an effort to finish and report back before 12:30 so that everybody can go home and the meeting can be adjourned.